Welcome back, friends and family, to the Culturally Distinct podcast. We have a special show for you guys today. We have an emergency show because it seems like it's a state of emergency in HBCU world. First, it was Deion Sanders a couple of weeks back. Now it's Ed Reed. And I have a couple of fellows to join me on this conversation today to talk about their experience with HBCU. Each person on this panel has some type of affiliation with an HBCU. So we're going to talk about the ins and outs of HBCU and what we think. Was it a good idea to get rid of Ed Reed? But before we get started, I'd like to introduce my panel. I got my man, J.C. Lewis. He used to be a former quarterback at Southern University, SWAC championship. So he understands what winning is. We have my man, Darrick Brown, who coached at Langston University. He went to a PWI, unfortunately, but it's all good. He also went on and played the ball in the NFL. We got my man, Jackie. Jackie, what's your last name? Mitchell. No, we got my man, Jackie Mitchell, who's also HBCU graduate, played 12 years in the CFL, also NFL. So I have my man, Richie, who's also an HBCU graduate and also is an agent for actual NFL players right now as we speak. So, and myself, who's an HBCU graduate and, Hall of Famer. So it's all good. I got to pump myself. I'm just saying, guys. So anyway.
You in the Hall of Fame, Adam?
In my mind, I am, man. Come on,
Don't
man.
call us out like that,
bro. Hey, speaking into existence, right?
Existence. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you for joining the show, man. So as you know that, Ed Reed, he left. He didn't leave. He got fired from HBCU. Bethune-Cookman University hired NFL Hall of Famer Ed Reed. Ed Reed is a native of Louisiana, played at University of Miami, then went on to Baltimore, what are they? Ravens. To have a 14, 15-year career Hall of Fame. And then came out to start coaching as the chief of staff at the University of Miami, was offered a job at a HBCU for being the head coach. By being the head coach, it's alleged that he wasn't under contract. He was there on his own pretense, on his own will. You think it's fair for a person of his caliber to come to a situation like that and just get booted out like that? Jackie?
I think there's just too many variables to it. I think him coming into the situation, I think it would have been a great opportunity. I think it would have been a great hire. But I don't think he did his due diligence. And in doing that, unfortunately, he tried to take somewhat the approach that Deion Sanders took. Mm-hmm. And I feel due to the culture of the university, they're already in the hole. Reggie Theus has been there for a few years trying to rebuild the culture, rebuild the sports, and get the right people in there. Everybody on this call know what it is to be at the HBCU and the limitations that we have financially. And I feel that if Ed Reed, if both parties would have come together and he sat down and knew everything that he was in place to do, I think it could have been handled differently. Unfortunately, his words, that because it was almost like, hell, you done aired all our dirty laundry and You're not even here yet. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not under contract. So my thing is like, true enough, it's easy to say this person is coming, this person is coming, but at the end of the day, can you trust him?
But and that's the thing. So now, since Deion Sanders, and I call them celebrity hires, a lot of HBCUs want, they want to go to that type of coach. So the thing is that a good hire for any HBCU when most of our HBCUs are in a similar situation?
I just feel whoever, I don't care if it's celebrity, I don't care if it's Jesus. You know what I'm saying? If whoever goes into those universities, if they don't understand the fabric of that university,
okay,
it's going to be difficult because you and I both know recruiting is different, finance is different, boosters is different, alumni is different, and they're going to pay for who they want. I personally feel Deion did a great job at Jackson, but he's one of one. You know what I'm saying?
And I
But
want
he
to take it
gave
to
us the
JC because
blueprint.
JC is from California, right?
Mhm.
JC Lewis, who's on the call right now.
Yeah.
I want to know his experience and why did he decide to come to a school in the South? Because it's kind of the same situation when we talk about recruiting. You talk about getting a different face or different kids from a different caliber to come to schools like that. JC, why did you make that decision to come in? What's your thoughts on the Ed Reed situation?
So I'll attack it. So you asked me two questions. So I'll take the first one. So why did I go to a HBCU? To be perfectly honest, I grew up in Northern California, the Bay Area. In California and where I was raised, right? I went to an all-white school. I was the only Black kid at that white school. Right. I was the quarterback on the team, so I got all the, pub and blah, blah, blah. And we did win. And then as I was going through that recruiting process, I sent my, tape out to all these different places. HBCUs, Southern, and also Howard came back and they wanted to offer me a scholarship. So, I kind of took it from that situation. Now, as I was growing up in Northern California, I didn't get any HBCUs didn't come out there. They weren't recruiting. When I heard about HBCUs, I heard that they were just in the South. So, nothing really on the West Coast or anything like that. So when I did make the decision that I was going to go to Southern, and I'll be honest, I made the decision to go to Southern because I played football and Southern played in the Bayou Classic, which was national TV game, got great exposure and things like that. So that was the real thing that like drew me in, like, okay, if I have to go to, a school in the South, deep South, at least I'm playing on the biggest stage, possible. And so that was the reason why I went to, Southern University. Now, as far as for the Ed Reed situation, I think the Ed Reed situation it's unique from the standpoint that from Bethune-Cookman's standpoint, I think they thought that they were getting a Deion Sanders-like coach. Ed Reed, on the other hand, you knew kind of the situation, how HBCUs are. I mean, even if you just called Deion before, that initial call when Bethune-Cookman said, "Hey, we're interested in bringing you on," I got to think that he made that phone call to Deion and say like, "Hey, what's the situation out there?" And Deion probably would have laid out like, "Hey, you funding isn't there, facilities aren't there, support isn't there. But if you go in, and kind of build it from the ground up,
right?
It could be something." Unfortunately, Ed Reed, they just did the contract negotiations. They talked about it. And then immediately after, Ed Reed started airing out their dirty laundry. So from that standpoint, it turned into a bad situation, from the very beginning.
So
you're not going to agree in principle to a contract and then air out my dirty laundry immediately after.
So I want to go to Darrick right quick, because I know, Darrick, you went to a PWI, but you got an opportunity to coach at a HBCU, right? And the HBCU that you went to was one of a smaller HBCU, so the funding wasn't really there. So what was your expectations going into it? And did you feel like Ed Reed when you first got on campus? And when I say feel like Ed Reed, saying there's no practice field, it's trash everywhere, nobody is caring about the campus.
Yeah, so I would say pretty much I didn't feel like Ed Reed when I first got there because I was just a receiver coach. So I already knew my position going in. Like I knew I wasn't making a lot of money. So that's the thing. Like I wasn't taking the job because of the money. Because it was
how much money they was paying you, man? By the way,
only $30,000. Like, bro, you can make that, what I'm saying, Burger King or something. You know what I mean? But I was just there to like, basically help young guys, make them try to be like me. You know what I'm saying? Like started from nothing, go to school, work hard, and get somewhere, because a lot of these guys basically was, they didn't have the grades to go to, like, the USC or any other schools or McNeese or whatever. So basically just kind of helping. So once I got there, I kind of changed a lot. So I basically started doing the liaison for NFL scouting. So YG, Ty Dolla $ign coming through. So all the stuff that Deion had did too, we had already did that. Like, so all. What'd you say?
But now I want to cut you off because you said something that caught my attention, because you said that McNeese was similar to USC.
Well,
are they the same?
Hey, we put guys out. I ain't saying we know USC. We don't have no USC facilities, but we are better than Langston facilities. You know what I'm saying? So
I was just checking, man. That's all.
That's the only thing. But that's the only reason why I went to McNeese. I had other schools I could have went to, but the only thing my parents told me is I could go to the HBCU.
Got you.
So that was the one thing that they kind of held me from, because my high school was pretty much all black, so I couldn't go to that.
So I want to ask you guys this: as professionals, we all are professionals. We all have a professional background. We work in professional settings daily, right? The way that Ed Reed handled himself, was that professional on his part?
Nah.
Nah.
It wasn't professional. That's one reason I left Langston.
I would say this, man. We don't know the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so to his defense, I don't know what was told. I don't know what he saw. I don't know the ramifications of the contract. And so, if you tell us to speak factually, that's where I'm a hinge on. I just felt being, because, I started at the PWI at Pittsburgh.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? But I think hearing it, seeing, saying, always cool, calm, and collect. But the reality of it is, like, it's almost like that old game they used to play where you choose what's behind door number 1,
right?
Behind door number 2, door number 3. I don't think he walked through every element of what his assignment was, and it is frustrating because when you're coming from Miami, you know what I'm saying, you coming from these other big time programs that everything is laid at your feet. But that's what I said, as the other gentleman stated, it's Deion White, but it's only one Deion. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's only one Deion. And what Deion did at Jackson, it can be simulated, but it can never be repeated. Because
so I want to ask you guys this.
True. Let me, Adam, first of all, let me make a point about this situation, man. As a Southern graduate, master's from Grambling, Deion Sanders wouldn't have worked anywhere else but Jackson State, because I personally have said that Jackson State's AD thought outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
As a person in the corporate world, I think a few things we have to also realize. Most people at HBCUs are based in academia, right? They aren't quote unquote business people. If you go look at the larger universities, they have business people running their campuses and or athletic programs.
Correct.
And a lot of times it is about revenue generation. So as Jackie said, yes, Deion has success at Jackson State, and to replicate it, of course, that essentially is a blueprint. I think Ed Reed is one of the smartest football players that we'd ever seen. Of course, that's usually reserved for quarterbacks, right?
Correct.
But watching Ed Reed play safety, he's probably one of the smartest football players you'd ever see. I personally think those young men would have benefited from him being their coach. As an agent, of course, I'm always helping guys transition even after their careers. We know, being in the corporate world, you can't say everything you feel and believe at the time. So I think that's what he ran into, is not necessarily understanding that part of it.
But that's what I want to get into, though. I want to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think the players can appreciate him speaking up for them. Because, again, everybody that's talked about it says, we know our limitations. We know our limitations. But at some point, man, we got to attack our limitations and not necessarily speak about those limitations and what are we going to do to resolve them. And I think, of course, the young men, and I think that's one thing I hate about conversations nowadays, because two things can be true at the same time. He probably was right for speaking up and advocating for his players, but then B, you can't, air the dirty laundry of the university.
Correct.
So I think that there's a couple of things going on, and I think that's what he's faced with.
So what you guys think about the way he handled that situation when he said that he was resigning from the position?
I think, bro, we also got to understand too. We all on this call, if you went to Southern, spent some time in Louisiana, you probably knew somebody from New Orleans. Ed Reed, though he with the Destra head, like he a New Orleans dude, bro. And like some of them cats, you know what I'm saying? Like
he's passionate, huh?
He is passionate.
So, yeah. So that passion, I think, I think that probably got the best of him. And it is frustrating if and again, this is based upon what he was saying. If something as simple as having his office clean, come on. I mean, that's easy work. Like that ain't all that difficult, man. Like that's just basic professionalism.
Well, he wasn't on contract yet.
Right.
But they had made it had been known that he was going to be hired as their coach, right? And that was per the university.
But he had to agree to that too, Richard.
Yeah, he has to agree, right?
He had to agree to that, because if you're not, and that becomes a part of the business portion. You see what I'm saying? You don't go into any situation, you being an agent, I know you know this, you don't go into a situation without being protected. Right. He didn't protect himself.
No,
and contractually, you're let out in the dark. And it's unfortunate that they can say, hey, okay, you basically you aired our dirty laundry, you done said this. Now, as a staff, like I said, can I trust you? Can Reggie Theus trust him? Can the other people trust him? Because now you're a tattletale almost. And that's, and for Black, it's like snitches get stitches almost. The snitches got fired. You understand? Yeah. I mean, that's what it was to me. Now, and it was
but think about this. And what you're saying, Jack, I totally agree. But now, for a person from the outside looking in, first of all, Deion, he tried his best not to expose him. But when he went on Shannon Sharp, Shay room, he kind of still was modest about the way he handled the situation and how, he started saying a lot of things was going on, money-wise.
Right.
Ed Reed's kind of saying the same thing, but he just like you said, Rich, he's just passionate about it. But now anybody that had an opportunity or potential for these kids to go to HBCUs, they're basically saying, well, this goes on at majority of these HBCUs, and why would I put my kid in that situation?
And I think, man, we've known that for years. How long do we continue to accept it? You know what I'm saying? Like, we all know. Listen, what he said, any of us know, having experience with an HBCU, he wasn't lying, right? And people yell about things they believe to be true. So if their conversation was primarily, you aired our dirty laundry, well, let's clean up the laundry. And I think that's has to start being our focus, as opposed to, well, we know these things are wrong. Well, we know our limitations. At some point, when do we start cleaning up the laundry?
So let me ask you a question, Rich. You're spot on, but let me ask you a question. Being a sports agent, and you are in the middle of signing young men, parading young men, signing, high potential possible clients. It's no different being an agent, right? If there's it's a level of integrity, it's a certain level of morals, it's a certain level of understanding. It's some things you got to keep in house. You just have to keep in house. And I think for Ed Reed, I take nothing away. Like you said, he's passionate, he's cerebral, he's one of the best ever to play the position, but he's never been at a HBCU, and he's never been a head coach.
Right.
So you also have to take that into consideration too. He's never been a head coach. And a lot of guys who play aren't good coaches. You see what I'm saying? Some don't make that transition, properly. And you're talking about someone with like Adam said, a 14-year career, 12-time Pro Bowler, Hall of Fame player, played at the U, drafted, was he second or third pick in the draft? You see what I'm saying? He's always been here at a level of expectation and or work ethic. So coming into Bethune it probably looked a little mystified for him, but I just feel neither party summed up everything on both sides. And I think if that would have happened, it wouldn't have mattered what he would have said, because, and in your wording, your words are so powerful. Had he said, hey guys, we need help, instead of all HBCUs have a broken mentality. Those words, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Those words, and they carry so much weight, because like that lady Tamika Reed came on and she said, when you at HBCU, you got to roll your sleeves up. You got to get dirty, because it's a lot of work. We've worked at HBCU, Adam. You know what I'm saying? We've worked at them suckers, man, and it is tough. But you're coming from a position of here. I'm sorry, you're coming from here with Ed. You know what I'm saying? You're coming from a place of, he's always seen from a high level. And so to get down here, honestly, with, I'm just an analogy. You're down here with the grunt workers. You see what I'm saying? You down here with the grunt workers. You down here, your hands are getting dirty. You got to roll up your sleeves. You got to start getting these recruits in. You got to get some sponsorships. You got to find ways to get money in. And does he have the ability to do that?
So
I know he got a relationship.
My question is this. And this is Darrick. I was going to ask you this, Darrick.
He should have a PR team like Deion with the social media, because as soon as he jumped on social media and he did that rant, I think that was it.
Yeah,
that was it.
But I think he did have a PR team. He just went because there was on Roland Martin Day, and the guy who was representing him, he was speaking over the PR team.
And a different dude, but he a New Orleans dude, bro.
It is raw, man.
You can't do that.
So let me ask you this, Darrick and JC. Would you guys, if you guys was 18 years old, would you follow behind Ed Reed for wanting him to be your head coach? And why?
I probably
For
would.
me, yeah, go ahead, Darrick.
No, I said I probably would, because he played a position that I play, like DB and stuff like that. So I'm going to gravitate toward that, especially if I don't have no, like I said, USC, Oregon, all these big schools I can't go to. Why not go somewhere where I know I'm going to get the right training, everything that's going to be perfect? That's why a lot of kids went to Jackson State that couldn't go to like USC and stuff like that.
Go ahead, JC.
Yeah, so for me, probably not. And the reason why is because, one, he brand new head coach. He hasn't coached in HBCU, hasn't been a head coach before. If I'm going to come from California all the way out to Florida, I want to make sure the head coach is going to be there, for a while, and also has a good record. I mean, even for me, like when I came from, California down to Southern, you had Pete Richardson there. I mean, he was a legend, and he's been there for, decades. And so I knew that, like, when I was going there as a freshman, I knew I would, I may have to redshirt, sophomore, may have to, be a backup. But I knew that, I would be under kind of like that umbrella of Pete Richardson. For Ed Reed,
I'm about to say, coaches, they're here for a short time, not a long time. So you really can't say about that. Deion was there for what, 2.5 years, 3 years almost. So you got a lot of coaches, even like Deion. Deion was the coach, but you see a part of the time Deion was out when he had his surgery. So you got coaches that can do the job. That's the only thing you're doing is building the team. Like, so your whole coaching staff is really like head coaches, and that's what Ed Reed was going to do too. So you got to look at it like that.
And I'm conflicted with that, because I think me personally, I think Ed Reed would have been a great guy for the kids, but I think he would have lost every game.
and that's the thing. I mean, think about it. Just because you're a great player doesn't necessarily make you a great coach. And think about like all the protests that the students are doing right now. I mean, think about, you're protesting for a guy who doesn't have head coaching experience. So let's say you fall on the sword, bring him in. It's like, oh, hey, we got Ed Reed, and then you guys go 0-15. You're gonna be like, hey, we need to get next guy up.
Well, let's get some
factors, man. There's so many factors. Like I said, like they can say what they want to say about Deion. He gave you a blueprint. He showed you how to make money. He showed you how to do ticket sales. He showed you how to keep everything within your organization. He as he spoke about the social media, he got on there. He basically, I ain't gonna say big, but damn near big alumni. Hey, I need you. I need you. I need you. He held them to a particular standard, right? And so for me, with Ed, almost like JC said, it's like, I know you're a great player, but I don't know if you're a good person. And if you can't connect those dots in recruiting, because like I said, the statement that Edgerrin James made, he was like, man, that's sad that you had Shaquille O'Neal and all these people willing to back you, right? So in doing that, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but why hide that hand when you go to that interview? Because I'm telling the AD, hey, listen, man, what we need to do, I got this person, I got Edgerrin James, I got Shaquille, I have the support. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. The right dialogue, it couldn't have been had.
But you don't think that was detrimental for him though? Because as we know, most of us that work in HBCU and work on the administrative side, we know if you got too much power,
right,
that's a problem for the administration. Because now they can't control you.
But so that's what I'm saying. That's why I said the proper dialogue wasn't had. That's why I said you got to hide your hand sometime. You understand? So in hiding my hand, I'm gonna get my contract first.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna
you can fire me. I can get my contract. Right.
Right. I'm gonna let that ink
dry. The money, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna let my ink dry, and then I'm gonna start bringing, like what Deion did, almost like what Darrick said. Deion started bringing these celebrities. He got Jeezy. He got Fuji. He got Young Dolph. You know what I'm saying? He's pulling in entertainment and marketing. You didn't even get an opportunity, Abe. So no one knows. As far as we know, you're a bust. I'm not saying it's true, but you're a bust.
Well, one of the things, man, I think we got to understand, like, a part of a lot of great players not being good head coaches, there is a element of professionalism involved that while you are a great player, you're not always a great quote unquote professional. You're not the most articulate guy.
Right.
That's why, like Darrick said, you have to have a team around you, and then they quickly understand that what worked on the field doesn't work off the field. However, I think Ed Reed's athletic prowess should earn him okay, we're gonna be patient with him. If he doesn't know anything else, he knows defense, and he can communicate that to young men. Because for the most part, when you're a player, one of the things is, does your coach know what he's talking about? Now, Nick Saban gets the best players at Alabama. He can probably hire some grad assistant to tell the guys to get 20 yards deep on a cover two, whatever. They're just the best players. But if you are listening to an Ed Reed, you are going to gravitate to him because you watched him play. You understand that he knows what he's talking about. And also a thing about the interview, how many of us have gone to a job and the primary thing we're talking about in the interview is what can we bring to what can we bring to the position, right? Mm-hmm. My knowledge, my background makes me right for this position. And I think the notion that when you're going to an HBCU, you have to sell them on the people no, that's their job. Ed Reed, in that interview, should have been talking about football, what he's going to do for football, what he's going to do pointing to those young men. And that should have been the conversation. That's it. And I think what he's done throughout his lifetime on the field, the way he's carried himself off the field, I think that any of us would sit down in a room and listen to him if we had a son that he was coming into our living room and listen to. And we know that's a lot of times, man, getting the conversation. So
I agree with you with some of that stuff, but some of that stuff I don't, because I think coaching jobs, especially on that level, they don't interview for them jobs. It's somebody that recommend them. They know somebody, and of course you got to go through the process so you don't get sued, but they already know what they want.
So here's my 2 cents on it. Right, there's a difference, right? Being a head coach for a major university, I mean, X and the O's, yeah, that's all great, but you got to be a promoter. You got to make sure, the kid's family likes you. You have to make sure you have the boosters that like you.
Fundraiser.
Administration is happy. You need to make sure all the sponsors who sponsor the program, they're all happy with you. And you have, your assistant coaches, drilling into the X's and O's for the team. I think with Ed Reed didn't have that, right? I think Ed Reed is, he has great instincts as a cornerback, as a safety, can really sit with your kid and show them how to be, a great, player on the field. But being a head coach involves so much more than just X and his O's. You have to be able to, wow the crowd at rallies. You need to be able to, be able to stand up there in front of, dinners and be able to promote your program in such a way that, car dealerships wants to, sponsor with the university. I don't know if Ed Reed had that. You definitely saw that with Deion Sanders, because even what he's doing, and I really like what he did when he first came to Jackson. He first came in and said, hey, I'm trying to buy a house with a pool, right? All the realtors who are in Jackson were like, hey, I need to call Deion to show him these houses, right? Then he started going to all the different restaurants down in Jackson. So he's promoting all the businesses around there. So Deion had kind of like this aura of like, hey, he's helping not just
you help me, I help you.
The community, he's helping, right? He's bringing everyone together. Ed
That's
Reed,
the most money Jackson State has gotten in 3 years.
Yeah, but then when you hear Ed Reed, when he gets his opportunity, right, first thing he says, hey man, it's garbage here. They're not even cleaning up my stuff. That's
it's trash.
Not gonna work, right? Yeah, that's not gonna work.
They put Ed out of there.
No, let me ask you guys this. So now going forward, HBCU, do you think that HBCU, and none of us are presidents, none of us are on boards, not that I know of. So going forward, do you think HBCUs should continue to hire these celebrity hires that don't have no coaching experience at all as a head coach?
No, but you got to understand, being at the professional level is different. Mm-hmm. You understand? It's different because that's your job, and that's what people have to separate. When you're in the professional level or you're in corporate America, I tell everybody, anybody I've ever spoken to, Darrick, you've played, Adam, you've played, JC, you've played, Richie, you've played, I've played. Sports is the only job where your job is on the line every play. Not every day, True. Every play, right? So when you're out there in the professional ranks, I told you the realest speech I've ever heard was from Jimmy Johnson when I went to Miami. And he said, if you look to your right, your left, in front of you, behind you, and everyone's doing their job, it'll be hard to beat us. So when you had the Baltimore Ravens defense, they had the best D linemen. They had the best linebacking core, and they had one of the best secondaries. So now all you're doing is fueling their talent. You're not leading men because they're the best at their position.
So you're saying Ed Reed is in the Hall of Fame? Is that what you're saying?
He is a Hall of Famer.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying.
No.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm saying, when you have captains, like you said, you have leaders. Like, I hate to say it, but Deion proved to be a leader of men.
Right.
He developed his staff. He got the #1 picks back to back. Mm-hmm. You know how hard that is?
It's difficult.
That's difficult. And like JC said, to go in someone's home, to speak to the mother, to speak to the father, for them to believe in you, right? That's heavy, man. And I think, Ed Reed I think he's articulate. I think he's smart, but that side has yet to be proven. Right. And I think if he had just lowered the tone and just said, we got work to do, if he just would have said that, hey guys, it's not what we want it to be, but we got work to do, that's a totally different, I can accept that. You know what I'm saying? Because now it's me.
I love these kids, man.
Right. This is me.
I love these kids, man. Right. I'm like, what is that?
So that's the difference between me and we. And if he would have said, we got work to do, I want to thank the universe. I want to thank Reggie Theus for bringing me on board. Hey, man, let's get to work. That's a totally different approach. Totally different approach.
And that's the conversation we got to have with young athletes and young men. You
Correct.
have to be professional. And
you have to be.
So do you think he'll ever get another chance?
Not at HBCU.
I think he'll get a chance.
You think so? As a head coach?
No, I don't think so.
Probably at a high school.
I don't think you'll get listen, Doc.
That's your hand.
You know how black people are about the HBCUs, brother. That's like stealing somebody's plate on Sunday dinner. You know what I mean?
Stealing somebody's chicken fresh out the grease, right?
But look, I think that's the reason Miami kept him on staff, because, like, again, he might have not been your cup of tea professionally, but I do think he has some wisdom that the players can appreciate and will benefit from. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think that's ever been the problem. No one ever spoke about his intelligence. We speaking about his approach.
His professionalism.
I think this is a professionalism conversation. Like he was.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate, Richie. I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and the reason I say that is, go to Duke, go to Michigan, do it at Miami, go to Penn State, do it at Alabama. What you think is gonna fly?
Oh, it got crickets over here. We got crickets.
No. Let me say this. Let me say this though. But here's the thing though, man. And
you're not answering the question.
We have to come back to. In any of those universities, listen, at any of those universities, are any of their coaches and or students helping pick up trash?
No, that's not the question, Rich. That's not the question. They have, I'm pretty sure every university has a beautification. Every school say, hey, we're going to get out here, we're going to volunteer. It's a beautification. He took that initiative because that was something he could hang his hat on. You see what I'm saying? You also have to understand, everybody got their own agenda too.
And the man he wasn't under contract. He was doing that on his own will.
But you see what I'm saying? You go to school in Florida. Florida's second home for him. You see what I'm saying? So it's a great opportunity. But my question is this. If Ed Reed is hired at any other university and he does the exact same thing, what they gonna do?
Well, Bob Knight used to curse all the time. They fired him.
Bob Knight. Wait a minute, Darrick. Bob Knight is.
Bob Knight won games.
I know, but I'm just saying though.
What color is his jacket? Bob Knight. I'm just saying, you can't dismiss that. We have to do this much more to get that much further.
Yeah, right.
To get that, and that's the problem. I agree with Richard because systemic, we're so, oh man, we ready to cancel culture, we ready to do this. But the reality of it is as good as Ed Reed is, he should have known better. His PR should have groomed him on that.
He should have listened to his PR.
This is not the way to go, Doc. Like, hold on. You can't go on social media.
He should have went to class as an athlete, need to learn some professionalism. But again, I think it's a professional conversation. He was unprofessional, but I do think it could have been an opportunity for the president to say, hey man, here's some things, like call him into the office and say, here's some things that's unacceptable, right?
The damage is
done. The contract was not signed. I get that. However, most of our HBCUs, the president and the boards are going to flex their authority as opposed to
all of them.
Okay, he was advocating for the kids, right? Cool.
No, he was crying.
In advocating for the kids, you were unprofessional, and that's a conversation that could have been had.
What? Well, you know.
So me playing devil's advocate again, Adam.
Go ahead.
He got on live and said, "Man, I don't know what the hell they doing around here." My office.
You ever said that at an HBCU?
Listen. Hold on. My office ain't clean. I done did more for these people in these last 2 weeks than people done for years. No, man.
The phone is on fire. The phone is on fire right now to the president. It's like, we need to get rid of this person right now.
Listen, hey guys, I'm sorry. Ed Reed is great, but he got to go.
He got to go, coach. I'm just saying.
And the president said he made that decision on his own. He said I listened to him on Rolling One. I didn't necessarily, I wasn't buying it to him, but obviously that was his decision to make. So
the moral of the story is, do not start work without being on contract.
No. When keeping it real goes wrong. You can't say everything you feel.
So guys, look.
So here's my 2 cents. So I look at it from the Bethune-Cookman standpoint. I mean, think about it. Right, you're able to get in contact with Ed Reed. Ed Reed has great connections, right? I mean, Ed Reed, I know in his phone has multi-millionaires in his phone. He also probably has connections with, the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, right? I mean, and all the people probably in his phone, ex-players, they all have charities. I know the Baltimore Ravens owners probably also has different charities. So when you're Bethune-Cookman, right, trying to partner with Ed Reed, hoping that you could get access to maybe those other guys to, donate, to put together, some fundraising and things like that. I think, from a business standpoint, and I think, one of you kind of mentioned, like, bringing in multiple streams of income, from Bethune-Cookman standpoint, that made a lot of sense. But then when you brought him in, the first thing he's talking about is airing out your dirty laundry. And I think there's a difference between being a leader of men versus being a leader of an organization. Being a leader of men, yeah, you could be in the trenches with them and kind of work with them, but leading an organization means you have to do what's right for the organization. And if you have to cut people off, you're going to have to cut people off. And there's a decorum being at the top and being in a leadership position. And I go to like Nick Saban. Nick Saban doesn't throw the football. He's not a quarterback or anything, but he's had great quarterbacks out there. He's not a receiver. But he's had great receivers out there. And the reason why he's had it is because he had great assistant coaches behind him to do that groundwork and lead those men. But you put Nick Saban in front of boosters, Nick Saban is getting all the money from the boosters. You put Nick Saban on a commercial, he's getting all the money from that. So, you could be a head coach and not necessarily be, deep in the X's and O's, but
also being a head coach, I think what you just said about Nick Saban,
leading the organization down the right path.
Yeah. I think what you say about Nick Saban and all those things are true, but Nick Saban, best believe as a head football coach, he's singularly focused. He don't give a crap about what's going on around my Alabama academically or anything else. He cares about his football team. Ed Reed was the football coach.
I have a question
for
too,
his football players.
Why are y'all comparing Nick Saban to Ed Reed? That's no comparison. Ed Reed never was head coach.
I have this question.
Nick Saban had to start somewhere.
I have this question, and I hate to say this. As society, you said it, Rich, we're in a social media society. Does Ed Reed have the look that Bethune-Cookman needed to be a head coach? Think about that.
Well,
but black men, if we gonna get down that slippery slope with the hair and the beard,
right?
We know we're not. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go back to my
Richie walking around that line.
Listen. So I think I think Ed Reed is rough around the edges, right?
Do he need a haircut?
So at HBCU, that is the place where they show him that level of patience. Now we don't have to do it just because you're black, but we have to do it because we understand.
Oh, we got to do it because we're black.
No. That's it. And that's
we got to do it because we're black.
Richie, the biggest thing is you and I speak about this, the etiquette. It's etiquette to this head coaching, Doc.
And that's the conversation I think the president should have had with him.
But so wait a minute.
I think he missed an opportunity. I think he missed an opportunity.
Ed, 40 years old, man.
He got to know he's 25 years old, man. He should know that.
But I'm saying he has to know. These are certain, like you said, the professional side of it is when you walk into that locker room or you went to that game, you dressed appropriately. It was a standard.
Right.
So when you are a head coach, like look at Deion. Deion got his hair done, got his teeth fixed. It was a standard. You see what I'm saying?
You should know the difference.
You got to look a certain way. You got to carry yourself a certain way. You can't bring Destrehan to Bethune-Cookman as the head coach, as JC said, because it is a decorum. There is a expectation. There is a want to say, hey, man, he looks the part. And I hate to say it, he didn't look the part.
Look, or even if he walks into a room, oh, that's the head coach right there versus that's one of the players.
Exactly.
Man, I think in Florida, Ed Reed names rain.
I don't disagree with you, but this is not Florida.
And listen, and I promise you, and we've all been around NFL players, they disregard what you look like to be able to have a conversation with you about just talking about the Super Bowl and how, you know what I'm saying? So we know that. And I think when most people are assessing them, they are assessing the NFL player that was once perhaps their favorite player or played for their favorite team.
Yeah.
We know many conversations have started based upon a connection, right? So I think that was a connection that could have been utilized. And as you said, Jackie, I totally agree with you. There's a certain degree of professional etiquette that you must have as a head coach. I think that was an opportunity for the president to sit Ed Reed down and have that conversation to him. Because we all agree that this was his first job.
So I have a question.
It could have gone either way.
I have a question. This is my last one. So let me ask you guys this. The future for HBCUs, is it a conference, 12-team conference with nothing but Hall of Fame hires in the next 10 years, or is it what it's always been? What's your thought?
I think it'll be a little bit of both. But for me, I don't really care about the conference or the hires. We need to get these big box brands supporting and getting the financial sides. If they get the sponsoring, the marketing, and they get these big companies to back them, like just think about it. If all of our athletes, African American, went to HBCUs and we had the proper money, there would be no competition anywhere on the planet. Nowhere. You know what I'm saying? The SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, whatever. There will be no conference. If all of the African American students went to HBCUs, we would rule it. But due to the TV contracts, due to the sponsorship, due to the marketing, it's going to be tough continuously until those things level out the playing field. As a coach, we're going to always find good men, good leaders of men. But like I said, we got to do this much just to get this far. That's my 2 cents on it.
And I'll say this, Jackie, guess what's a way. Okay, now how do we go in to those rooms or cultivate those relationships when we just pissed off one of their quote unquote brethren? So that's a tough one. Now we don't want to get into that competition. And again, two things can be true at the same time. Ed Reed was unprofessional. True. Ed Reed was advocating for his players. I think there also could have been an opportunity for Bethune's president to get Ed Reed to understand this is how we do things around here.
What's your take on it, Darrick?
Like I said, I just think he was definitely unprofessional. Like, as soon as you pull up social media, you can use it to a gift and a curse. But as soon as he went live, that really just messed up everything. Like, he should have not went live. Pre-recorded stuff and then put it out. Don't record it live. That's what he should have done.
Don't hit that sin,
right? You don't understand social media. He said you don't understand it. So that was his big downfall. He was like the social media BS, like, I don't even do this crap. That's basically what happened.
So don't do it, right?
Again,
don't press record.
Look, again, I'm gonna say this.
Look,
again, I'm gonna say this before I end the show.
So
sign the contract first.
Sign the contract. I have one question for the group before we go.
Yep.
The unfortunate side of it is we've seen the demise of the head coach opportunity. For everyone on this call, Adam, thanks for having me on this call. What do you tell a millionaire, though?
Can't tell him nothing.
So when things aren't to your liking, to your standard, whether it be your office, whether it be your equipment, whether it be your secretary, whether it be how the facilities are, the easiest thing to do for a millionaire or somebody who's coming from money is to walk away.
Yeah.
It's because it's like, I don't have to deal with this. You see what I'm saying? And that's what people aren't thinking about with Deion Sanders.
Yeah, he told him.
They see that they missed that point. And that's the thing. I feel completely Ari would have done a hell of a job. I will never knock that. But if I'm coming from millions, if I'm coming from the U to Bethune-Cookman, that's like, unfortunately, Southeastern, going from LSU to Southeastern.
Right.
See what I'm saying? It's just night and day. And it's such a big hill to climb financially, academically, demographically, relationally. I mean, it's so many things that goes on in HBCUs. And the smallest thing, like, man, I got money. I don't need this. You know what I'm saying? And therefore, you really don't care what you say, nor do. And you don't care about what comes with it because this is something you don't have to do.
Right. I get that.
Hey, Adam. Hey, one last thing. So here's my 2 cents for your question about, the future of HBCUs. I think the HBCUs need to, kind of make a decision, especially like with football, right? Make a decision, right? Are we just a school where you just come here, you play football, and then you go off and, be a professional in some other field? Or are we trying to establish a pipeline to the NFL, the USFL, or the XFL? And I think if, the HBCU, especially like the football community, make that decision that, hey, we want to make sure, hey, you come to our school, you will get an opportunity to go to the NFL Combine. You'll get to, be able to play in, one of these leagues, and really have that, kind of have that pipeline set up. I think, how to do that, you probably do need to have celebrity coaches come in just to, bring attention, but then you also still need those, assistant coaches who have connections to the NFL and other places to make those phone calls to say, hey, I have a guy here at Southern, man, he runs a 4.3, benches XXX, he can play, let's give him a shot. And I think if HBCUs start getting in the routine of consistently sending guys to the next level, I think that will also help with recruiting, help with bringing in more money, especially with the, whole transfer portal and things like that. I mean, it's the wild, wild west, but kids need to know that, hey, if I come to an HBCU and I want to play professional, I could go to an HBCU and still hit that pipeline and make it to the next level.
But anyway, guys, look, I appreciate you guys for joining the show. Before we leave, I want you guys to leave y'all social media.
SUJag_12. Exactly, Mr. 365, man. I'm working on a few things, man. So Adam, I'm waiting for you to bring me back on the show so we can talk about my business and all that stuff. But man, I appreciate the opportunity.
Richie?
My name on IG, man, is rbickham1911.
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm D6_sports. Also, if you look up any hashtag with D Brown Tour, you'll find me. Also, DarrickBrownTravel.com. You can always find me on that too.
And what I'm talking about, Darrick got merch. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Darrick got merch, man.
Hey, man, I got a DB I need you to train, and I need a trip to Jamaica. I mean, can you help your boy out?
That's what I'm talking about. Guys, look, I appreciate you guys for joining the show. This is DJ KO with Culturally Distinct Podcast. You know where to find us. We everywhere. We're going to have more insightful conversation with more and more people from Houston area and beyond. So, guys, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I love you guys, and you can't do nothing about it. Peace out.